generative AI is kind of a once in a generation kind of a uplifting technology. So, like the iPhone and the internet itself, I think the implications of what we're seeing is going to make profound changes over years and decades and create huge new opportunities. And so I'm super excited.
Welcome and good afternoon to TCA Crossroads. This is a podcast where entrepreneurs and investors connect. This is our second episode, and we have a very interesting and timely subject. We're talking about the ChatGPT effect and what it means to people, and is this AI taking over the world? My name is David Friedman. I am the current chairman of Tech Coast Angels. My colleague Costin Tuculescu is my co-host, and I'm going to turn it over to Costin for some wise words of wisdom because he has a very interesting background. He is not only an investor, but he is also an entrepreneur. So, Costin,
thanks, David. And I will say I'm way more of an entrepreneur than an investor. I'd like to make some more angel investments. I'm just getting my feet wet. Unlike you, sir, who's had, 15 years of investment experience. But I'm really excited about TCA Crossroads. This is our second episode. And today we've got two awesome dudes who also happen to be angel investors in the Orange County chapter with us. And in no particular order, we've got Grant Van Cleve and Jeff Curie. Gentlemen, why don't you say hello?
Hi.
How you doing?
All right. And we've got Grant. He's out on the road. He is filming this on location, deeply investigating AI in healthcare is kind of where I'm thinking.
Nice.
And Jeff, his most recent company, it was an AI company. So I just, Jeff, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background with AI, why you're interested in AI, and just your high-level 60-second thoughts on ChatGPT.
Sure. Yeah, happy to. I studied AI in school in computer science, but then it was just trying to plot, how do you even outline an object on a screen, and it was so simple. So been through the AI ringer through expert systems and all that stuff. And my last company was a natural language processing company, which was analyzing all the world's news, looking for material events that traders could use to generate more money.
What was that company called?
Bitvor in Irvine.
Okay, got it.
And so, I've been kind of a B2B SaaS developer, entrepreneur for a very long time. And now I'm an angel investor, new to it like yourself. And looking at this opportunity, I mean, I think, generative AI is kind of a once in a generation kind of a uplifting technology. So, like the iPhone and the internet itself, I think the implications of what we're seeing is going to make profound changes over years and decades and create huge new opportunities. And so I'm super excited about it.
I love
and
it.
Grant, you're the head of Hangar 75. You're a big investor. What's your what's your background on this, and what's your perspective on AI in general?
Well, on the background side, I'm ironically, I still think of myself as a new angel because people like David were in the game even before me, but I've been around enough, coming up on a decade. I've got coming up on 100 deals that I'm invested in. I've been on the board of a lot of them. I've walked a number of them through to exits, a number of them through to deaths. But I've seen a broad enough and deep enough set of the life cycle of innovation to start to know a thing or two and see. I would agree with Jeff. This is a pretty instrumental moment. And we'll sort of talk through the pros and cons or the implications on jobs and transformations. I'm also bullish on innovation as a whole, the way we have adapted it and absorbed it into our lives. There's a whole lot of things that we do that seem absolutely crazy disruptive when they happened, and look how we integrated them into our lives and saw flourishing, not downside out of it. So
Let me give you a toss. I'm going to give you a toss-up question. One of you can start, and then we can get the dialogue going. Can somebody tell us what ChatGPT is in layman's terms, and also what does GPT stand for? This is for 10 points.
Yeah.
There's no real wrong answer.
Does it matter? I can
No,
explain
it really
what it is.
doesn't. But what is it? What is ChatGPT? Why is all the
Like
fuss?
a simple explanation of generative AI. And so the idea is that, we've been doing pattern matching with AI for a long, long time. And so we pour data into an AI, neural network, and we tell it, look for this and look for this, and we make adjustments to it, and we tell it about patterns. And then we say, is that pattern? Is that pattern? And then it says, yeah, it is, or kind of, that's what we've been doing with it for years. Well, all of a sudden, they figured out that, I forget who the scientist was, but it's brilliant, that you could basically play it backwards. And so you could take this echo that you've kind of created, and in the case of ChatGPT, it's with the English language, or actually any language, human language, programming languages, and then you can cause it to play backwards in an English language creation way by giving it a prompt. And so that's what we're seeing right now, is basically this echo of the human language being played backwards based on the prompts we feed it. And so, it's not always accurate, but, we're super early in this game, and it's stunning to see it work. And it's amazing how good it is about the automation of the English language. I mean, it's stunning.
Hey, Costin, I'm going to throw up a softball for you. What does GPT stand for?
Generative pre-trained transformer.
Got it. Yeah, congratulations.
Well done.
And that just shows you that Google is still not irrelevant. I went to Google for that, not to ChatGPT.
Yeah.
I did hear it explained a slightly different way, pretty much what you said, Jeff. But this guy also put it in a way where it's basically predicting what the next word should be based on what you gave it. So it's still like a form of prediction, but it knows how sentences should be structured and sentences completed. But then it's also been trained on the corpus of basically the entire internet, trillions of web pages. So Grant, any additional insight?
I would imagine most of our listeners have seen it and observed it, but one of the advantages obviously is that it is an iterative process. You can answer questions based on the input that you can ask further questions, which will help dig deeper and refine an end result that's closer to what one needs, which has been a big problem with different forms, including search in general until now.
Yeah. Do you think it's replacing search, or is it augmenting search?
Augmenting.
How do they work together?
I mean, I would say augmenting there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a huge threat to Google. Up until now, Google has trained us. You put your thing in this box, and we're going to give you 10 results. You look through those results, then you click on maybe the number 2, number 1, number 3, then you read that page, and maybe you get your answer. But ChatGPT has come along. You ask the same question, and boom, you have the answer.
The beauty of this is that it's not just a question, right? You can ask it, hey, I want to learn about cold fusion. What are the 5 most important things that I should learn about cold fusion? And give me a summary of each of the 5. And boom, oh, okay. Now tell me more about that one. And what's the math behind it? And
that's just not that all within one context. And imagine doing that with Google. You're constantly switching context. You go into one paper, then you go back to it. So I do think it's a threat to the current search paradigm. But to your point, David, Google is responding very quickly. But let's bring it back, gentlemen, to angel investing, to building companies. We clearly don't need to worry about Google. We can make no impact there. But this podcast is for entrepreneurs and is for angel investors. And for entrepreneurs, we want to help them build great companies. And for angel investors, we want to help them get huge returns, right? So bringing it back to that, we talked about what is generative AI. How do you guys think this trend will change tech in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I think just to chime in on that. I think there's going to be a lot of disruption to people who have taken a procedural approach to stuff, and then all of a sudden there's going to be companies that are going to come up with a way better way to do it using generative AI. So there's going to be a bunch of disruption in terms of companies that need to rethink the threat, a better way to do it now that this new technology is here. But I think on the other side, I think, the angel investors, kind of like you said, it's hugely compute intensive and storage intensive and data center intensive and cloud intensive and energy intensive to train these models. And clearly people are going to train them like crazy. And right now it's you got to have deep pockets, big companies, governments, huge amounts of data. So there is an issue with centralization of these models, maybe, if you trust, who's controlling the dials. But building on top of these models is where I think, there's going to just be an explosion of applications. We're already seeing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of little utilities coming out, like you can put a PDF into a thing, a 6,000 page PDF if you want to put the latest, government regulation in it. And then say, summarize it for me and tell me what I need to know and give it to me in 30 seconds, and so, but can you make money at that? Because people are building them in days and they're kind of unknown companies. But I think there's going to be huge things that come out too that we don't even see coming, that are going to be like, well, that's brilliant, and that changes everything. A replacement to CRM, right? Or a replacement to, these big.
They're talking about that relative to coding. I mean, using ChatGPT for coding and a replacement for low code coding. But I want to flip it over to a second to Grant. Grant, what are you seeing in terms of investment potential in your view as an angel?
Well, I think it was sort of identified by Jeff. Jeff threw out so much there, we could almost dig into different pieces of that. But it's very possible that it'll be a greater disruption for those who have incumbent solutions to things than it will be. It actually might stimulate the opportunity for for big potential startups, because they can go further faster. They need less money. They can get MVPs out there faster. They can pivot, iterate in ways that we haven't. It's gotten some of those you mentioned, low code, and there's ways and there's tools that have helped that build out of a startup faster. But I think I would be more concerned. I'm filled with excitement as a startup investor that there's going to be pretty dramatic things we see, and they're going to get there with, I don't want to say less effort. I think there's going to be a real skill set that's built around those that can use these tools, use the APIs, create APIs, but they can use that. But I get where Jeff's saying that's even to access some of that is going to require significant compute power and whatnot. It's not just the solution somebody came up with.
Yeah, good point.
So, broad answers there around the question of next 5 years. Obviously, a lot of little AI-enabled tools that helps us accomplish things, maybe done by 2-3 person teams, and we're going to maybe see a lot of small teams that need very little capital, and they can use AI to build great tools. On the flip side of that, there could be other companies like OpenAI that will ingest $1 billion and build the next evolution of AI. It's quite significant, right? What industries or sectors do you gentlemen feel are going to be most disrupted by AI?
Call centers and drive-throughs.
Really? Wow. And I would have thought you would have said something very different, Jeff.
Really?
Copywriting.
No, I would have thought you would talk about predictive, diagnostics in medicine.
Well, I think people have been working on that for a long time, but I think it's very near to hand to have you can't, it's like the Turing test, right? If you take a limited domain like ordering or helping someone on the phone get their credit card resolved, and you take 10,000 conversations, which are all recorded, and say, those are the guardrails. Now answer the phone. And I think you're going to find excellent performance in these kind of narrow cases like that. Or, think about pouring all the help desk questions from Microsoft Excel into a generative AI and saying, okay, you tell me how to make a pivot table. Why isn't this working? Oh, well, because you did this. I mean, I think you're going to see that is going to be phenomenal and very rapidly impactful. But
So almost like a virtual assistant, ChatGPT as your virtual assistant.
I think it's going to be a brilliant virtual assistant. I mean, I
That makes
mentioned
sense.
the other day we have a member that has written a lot of books and a lot of blogs, and he's a very distinctive voice. And right now, you could take his body of work, load it into a generative AI, put a 11 Labs voice on it, his voice, and start asking it questions about.
Well, it's funny. We just had him on episode 1, by the way.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah,
you
just
could
to
build
let you know.
I called it, the Burkus bot, but you could build
Exactly. Yeah.
you could build.
We by the way, we
audience.
paid for this audience to participate, just to let you know. $49.95 a year.
They're all AI. It's an AI.
Yeah, they're all AI.
And
But
and they
what's
got a
the
great
business
sense of humor.
model for a guru in a box, right?
Sorry, Jeff. You were getting serious there, and I did my little drum joke, Phil. Am I repeating that?
I said, what's the business model for a guru in a box? Because
Guru in a box.
why can't you make a guru in a box right now? And I think you can, and I think that's really valuable.
There's this thing came out a few weeks ago called Auto GPT. Okay, and you give it a task. Say do marketing for my company, and it starts to ask the questions. What do I need to know to be able to do marketing at your company? And then it Googles that. And it gets the answers to what I need to know to be a good marketer company. And with those answers, then it iterates. So it eventually gets to the point like, well, I need to know the customer persona. I need to know our value proposition. So it develops the questions. Then it goes and gets the questions from you, the founder.
Interesting.
And then once it has the answers of who's the persona, what's the value prop, then it builds a marketing plan for you. So the AI that we have today is already asking very good questions based on just you give it a task and it starts Googling how to.
Yeah, I can just see a CEO who thinks, most CEOs think they're the greatest marketing people. Now they say, wow, I have ChatGPT. I don't even need a marketing person. I just have to ask it the right question. How do I make money, position the company, and make $1 billion? Who needs David? I mean, I can just see. So maybe a lot of jobs could be at risk. How do you deal with jobs at risk? Is it going back to what you said, Grant, retraining people to ask the right questions and use this correctly? Or is it going to be a change in the kind of jobs that we're going to see in the future? Maybe that's more rhetorical because I don't know the answer. I mean,
but I want to bring it back. So Jeff pointed out very wisely, customer support is likely to be very impacted. And really, what is that job? You're answering questions, right? Your job is customer support. You're answering, and then you're kind of going to a manual. You use the information from the manual and you resolve the problem, right? So that's all going to be automated. Most jobs that look like that are likely to be automated because companies are going to build these internal databases of answers, the playbook, and then these GPT large language models, they can do that job.
Yeah.
Right. So that's pretty concerning and interesting that, going back to David's question, what is the upskilling, the retraining that all those customer support reps and other similar jobs will require?
Well,
and what are the companies that will provide that, right? Because back to us, this is an investor group. This is entrepreneurs.
Where should we invest? So, Jeff, how do we find that next unicorn in the AI space? We're all waiting here for the answer.
Well, I think similarly to what we've seen over the years in software is, the question is that a feature or is that a product?
Yeah.
And I think we're going to see a lot of features. I think a lot of features that are going to get sucked into bigger products as those big products try to ride the AI wave and not be hit obsolescence.
Obsolescence, yeah.
I'm good with that.
So whether you could build a infrastructure to build support systems and sell that is one question, or will it be, is it too easy to do it in the first place and everyone will just go straight to the answer and just hire a consultant and build their own support systems?
Well, I don't need a consultant right now. I'm using ChatGPT as my guru, as you said.
Well, I mean, I think
Costin's going to replace me as a host with a ChatGPT eventually.
I thought you were an avatar.
Yeah. We actually planned this session using ChatGPT.
But you got to know that there's a lot of pain to getting things wrong. I mean, you get your net promoter score to go down because your customer service says dumb things, and I mean, you're not going to just internally just do it and on a weekend, throw your data in and give it a few questions and then all of a sudden swap over. There's going to be a role for consulting on that, avoiding false negatives, false positives. There's a testing element to it for sure, but long run, obviously it's going to save a whole lot of money by decreasing personnel, so it's going to happen. It's just, I don't think it's going to kick everybody out of jobs.
I mean, I think I read a quote, and I don't know what marketing person came up with it, but I thought it was very appropriate. It said, AI is not going to replace your job. Someone with AI is going to replace your job.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, is that people need to say, look, you're either going to say AI, or you're going to say, that's the new power tool, man. It's like Excel and PowerPoint used to be. Now it's going to be, I'm really good at generative AI in my civil engineering job, in my rocket design job, in my software development job. But I've got this sidekick, this co-pilot, which I think is a great term for it, it's like being upskilled, right? And so all the people who don't know how to use the tool, shame on them, because the tool's brilliant as an educator. You can ask it to teach you all about using it to solve a problem, all about, this problem and what do I need to know about it? What are the most important things about it? And it will inform you very rapidly. And so, you can learn things really fast. You can execute things really fast. And those who don't embrace it, I think therein lies the people who are going to be unhappy.
So they can act. I think you're as spot on as a tool that is going to be useful. I'm just also now wondering how it's going to affect the education of our students.
I think the curious minded.
I think it's going to be a boom. I think it's going to be fantastic.
I agree with you, Costin.
Like every student can get their own customized teacher.
Just about.
That's it.
Yeah, bet it at your own pace.
So where's those ed tech Gen AI companies? Come to Techos Angels with your virtual teachers, because that will be fundamental shift in society.
Right. So let me conclude this episode with comments by you and then to Jeff. As an investor, what advice would you give to AI startups as they present to people like TCA? And both of you are investors, so just curious, give some guidance to the people out there, and then we'll turn it over to you, Costin, for wrap up.
Well, I mean, I think the fundamentals still apply. You got to have a good management team that can execute. Otherwise, just a brilliant idea from one guy isn't going to make a company. And then, you got to not be a feature. You got to be, you got to make a play. You got to make a big play. And you got to have the wherewithal to do it and the team to execute it. I don't think that fundamentally changes. So, it's really people going, it's generative AI for protein synthesis or whatever it is, and not just stamping AI on every deck. That's not going to work. Everybody's been saying they've got AI for years. Well, clearly they don't. And now we're seeing,
Jeff, real quick,
stuff happen.
Do you feel like companies need to be creating their own Gen AI models and their own large language models for them to achieve high value? Or is it enough to use ChatGPT's APIs?
I'm not sure that's the right question. I think the question really is, as an investor, if they're dependent on OpenAI, the company, their model to be successful, are they willing to make that investment? Because building your own model is incredibly expensive. So you kind of have to get over this idea that, well, we're building on top of models that already exist, and those companies could change their minds and pull them from the market or dumb them down
Right.
or whatever, and we're at risk. And I think that's really a key
So what's the
question.
answer? So you refined the question, but what's the answer? Like, can companies build a lot of value building on top of OpenAI's technology, or will they need to develop their own large language models that are specialized, like you said, for protein synthesis or podcast generation?
I think the ones that can build their own model, that's a great moat. But I
Yep.
think a lot of value will come out of the ones who can't, but leverage it. And there will be some added risk there, but using APIs and the different approaches, and it's kind of like people building on top of AWS, and it's like it used to be like, well, what if you need to move
I
to
think
Google,
you broke the code. I think you're correct. It's going to be both. Some will leverage the platform of OpenAI, and some will build their own different kind of companies. Let me turn over to Grant.
Well,
Final comments?
yeah, I just, one of my jobs as an angel investor, to be faithful to our founders, is to not tell them that, you're supposed to do it our way. We're looking for scalable things with a certain upside potential, and only 1 out of 10 makes it, but the 1 out of 10 gets a 20x, so it carries the portfolio. But there's a whole lot of other ways to do business. So I'm thinking of all the, we get teased for having, whatever, pets.com or something in the past that seem to do it. Well, you don't need to. You just throw your pet product onto Shopify and instantly pop up a store and do e-commerce where you can make plenty of money, and you're probably never going to need an angel investment for it. There are easy ways to do that, and I believe there'll be some version of that where people are going to be able to tap into tools relatively easy, create a value add, and sell that service in their niche sector and make some money out of it. And they might not need angel investors in order to get that, but there's probably, and then there's the other extreme. If you're really going to do something transformational, it's going to take money and creating some proprietary things, and maybe somewhere in between, we'll be back in some deals that get a quicker access to a bigger chunk of market, but they're going to be depending on APIs with existing technology or evolving technology, because that'll be better, more efficient than doing it themselves.
Yeah. Costin, you want to take a wrap?
Yeah, just a few thoughts, because I've been spending the last 3 months deep diving into this stuff. OpenAI is basically like the electric company at the turn of the last century. Factories used to build their own electric generators to power the factory, and then we got the grid. Now there's this incredibly powerful tool out there that you can build due diligence applications and podcast producer engines. I'm not quite sure how much value can be created just by leveraging that. You have to get really creative in how you leverage OpenAI if you're sitting on top of it. But maybe you can create a $10 million company, $20 million company, and that could be a great outcome and not even require angel funding, right? And I'm talking about revenue company. The defensible technology with your own proprietary IP is what angels and investors are always looking for. You want to solve hard problems, and that probably does mean building your own large language models, specialized models where you own the data and you do the training and you do the hard stuff. I think that's where the billion-dollar companies are going to come from. So that's my 2 cents. I think we could have gone on for even way longer time. This is obviously one of the most exciting things happening in tech right now.
Yep.
I just want to say thank you to Grant, Jeff, David. A lot of fun on the TCA Crossroads podcast. Make sure you hit subscribe, and make sure you
put like and put subscribe, and and share the wealth. I mean, and let us know, what topics you like, because this is exciting for us. We are looking for that needle in the haystack, that next unicorn.
Yeah.
Help us find that next unicorn.
And keep coming back to the TCA podcast, guys. Take care. Thank you all. Bye.
Appreciate it. Take care.